Hey everybody, good to see you back once again. I don't have any actual work to show you this time, but I can kind of give you an update as well to what I've been doing since we last spoke, and it's been a lot of hours. Who's that? Let's see. Kyle Christ. Man, I just popped him in on a behind the scenes here the other day, so he's been quite chatty lately. Anyway, let's go over to 1113 and I'll show you everything I've got done since the belly pan. I finished the weathering on the lower engine side panels and both of the side irons. I think it worked well, getting that darker brown up here to kind of go in conjunction with how the radiator gets darker brown down there. A couple little run lines, continued it on up to that one. Just some, I would say, suitable discoloring all the way back here. Worked a little hard around that opening there, darkened it there where that breather drain is on that side, and just kind of the same over here. Tried to keep it a little lighter to go with the slightly lighter yellow theme. Did some distressing and some burning and a little bit of work around that opening right there. And so that's pretty much where we are, and spent a good portion of today getting the rest of the pieces ready to spray. We're going to do the front sides of the upper half panels for sure. We are also going to do the top sides of the foot plates for sure. And then for however much or for however long that paint batch lasts, we have the front half and rear half dirt guards ready. And I've even got, this was a new old stock air cleaner top I was able to source from Florin, and it was black when it showed up. It's never been on anything. I stripped the black paint off. It's never been rusty. You can tell that it's got a few dents in it because I think it got thrown in crates a bunch of times over the years, and I was able to save most of the old instruction decal on the top. So I'm going to try and save as much of that as possible and get the distressed looking paint around that. Some other pieces ready for that. So plenty of stuff to keep busy with the paint gun the next few days. So aside from that, well, there's some frequently asked questions that come up in the comment section a lot, and a few have been coming up a lot very recently that I decided to take a few minutes and answer right here, right now. So let's get into them. The first FAQ is, are you going to have 5J1113 at any tractor shows this year? And if so, which ones? Unfortunately, I'm not going to have it ready in time to take it to any tractor shows this year. There's just way too much left to do. I'm still mired down with doing all this tedious paint work, and we have not done the initial break-in run to it, and we may have to address any minor issues that pop up from that or adjustments that have to be made from that. And if we get that far with it, I still have to build a better set of track chains and get those super wide 20-inch pads put on, and we need to finish that front bumper build and then paint and weather that all in. And the show that I would have brought it to this year is coming up like a little more than 2 weeks from now, like maybe 3 weeks from now. There's no way I'm gonna have it ready in time. But the show that I would have taken it to is 58th Annual Scott Carver's Threshers, and it is featuring Caterpillar and Antique Caterpillar Machiner Owners Club Chapter 3. So I fit the bill on both of those counts. It is August 5, 6, and 7, 2022, and they have all their information online if you are interested in attending that event. I'm going to be there most likely with my 5U D2 number 7066, the Iron Mistress, which means about a week in advance I'm going to have to jump off of 1113 and go get the hood pulled off of that and clean out that rodent nest that started on fire on top of the starting engine the last time that I had it running last fall, and it hasn't moved since. So there's probably going to be some maintenance items to do, a couple oil changes, clean it up, grease it, and just get it overall ready for a show. And that's why all this summer I've just been slamming it to 1113, because that was my goal the whole time, is to have this tractor ready for that show, being that it was a cat feature with the club feature, and I just didn't make it. So is what it is, and we'll just be there with something yellow and have a good time. And that's very likely the only tractor show that I'm actually going to have a piece of equipment at, because of you know, the price of fuel and everything, just what it costs to move equipment around right now. Yeah, we're going to display at that show this year, and after that I will be in attendance at many others, but I really don't think I'll have any tractors at any others. So that's pretty much the full itinerary right there. Now to the second most frequently asked question. Since the first bumper build debacle mess up and then the redesign and the new sketch, and well, I stated that I am going to change the bumper blank length from 42 inches to the full 44 5/8, and I settled on this revised 60-inch radius. It's going to tighten the curve a little bit with an 88-inch cord length finished off. So if you take a perfect circle and put that line right through the middle, that's the diameter. But if you place that line off center anywhere in the circle, that's referred to as a chord length. C-H-O-R-D is how that's spelled. So with an 88-inch cord length, multiple people asked, isn't that going to be too short because you split 88 in half, that's only 44 inches and you need 44 5/8. And I'm not knocking anybody for having any sort of difficulty with this because, hey, I messed it up too. So it all boils down to, you know, that old saying, as the crow flies, a straight line. So an absolutely straight line is the most efficient way to get from one point to another point, whereas an arced line takes a lot more distance, or a lot more length, I should say, to cover the same amount of distance. That's how I want to phrase it. So we have the compass right here, and here is our center line right here. So we have our 88-inch span. So if we start off with the one end of the compass right here at the end of the cut off arc and the pencil right on the midpoint line, this is staying, in theory, perfect 44-inch length all the way up through there. See how that happens? So we're 44 inches down here, and if we pivot it up, we're 44 inches right there. That's where our first cut line would be. Do that to the other side. That's 44 inches right there. Pivot that up. That's our second cut line, and we only need another 5/8 of an inch on each one of those pieces, and we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 plus inches surplus there. So an 88-inch cord length, by the time you take into effect that arc and the increased length that gives you over a straight line, plenty of material there between those two pieces to have a several inch cut off chunk off each one and still end up with two blanks that are 44 5/8 of an inch long each. So all well and good. Now, the third most commonly asked, don't run into the door. Now, the third most commonly asked question lately concerns the front of the radiator, and oh man, what's missing right there? That's actually a good question and a bit of a long story. Follow me over to the bench, I'll show you. So once upon a time, some of these D2 tractors had a cast iron adapter, like a keyhole like sleeve piece put on the bottom of the radiator shell to facilitate a manual hand crank being put in the front of the tractor to, well, he says cranking diesel engine to loosen oil film. And you know, some tractors have that piece on them yet, and some I don't think ever did, and I don't really know if there's any rhyme or reason to it. Now, this is an early 1938 first model year D2. You can most definitely tell it had one on there at one time. You can still see the witness mark from it, and it's gone now. It's been gone ever since we had the tractor because, well, I believe it was removed because the prior owner had been in the process of fitting those push blade, dozer blade mounts, and had already started on a live power adapter drive that he had bolted to the front of the crankshaft pulley and was starting to fit a shaft to go through that hole in the bottom of the radiator, and I believe was going to mount a hydraulic pump out front for live hydraulics. So I'm sure that piece was taken off at that time. It got lost to history and we never had it. And unfortunately for me, for some reason, those pieces seem to be made of unobtainium, as I have never been able to actually have one in my possession. So being that the front bumper's going on anyway, and it's going to cover all that and you're not going to see it, I'm not that concerned about finding one. If I ever could find one, I would certainly pick it up. But for the rest of the story, in the very early 3J1, 5J1 and up operator's manual for the D2 tractor, under storage for machines that are going to be left to sit for extended periods of time, they talk about manually cranking the engine over to redistribute the oil film amongst all the critical moving parts, just to make sure that, well, I'll just show you right here. It says on the diesel engine, this should be done by running the engine once a week until it is thoroughly warm. If it is not convenient to start the engine, remove the injection valves once a month and pour 1/4 pint of crankcase lubricating oil into each cylinder. Then Crank the engine several revolutions by hand with the compression release lever in the start position and the throttle control lever in the stop position. Replace the injection valves. Thereafter, turn the engine with the crank once a week between monthly oiling intervals to distribute the oil on the cylinder walls and pistons. And there is the crank that you would put in the front of the tractor to manually turn it over, once a week. Now, I don't know how long that practice was recommended because, well, going back through once again the photo archive manual, which is just an invaluable asset in itself, which I've explained before, you can see a lot of J-Series tractors, some that have that piece, some that do not. So here are two 3Js in the same field. Looking way back on this one, it has that little keyhole adapter on the front of the radiator shell. The one ahead of it, though, does not. Go to the following page. Here is an early 3J. You can tell by that mushroom top air cleaner. That's most likely a 38, first gen model. You can clearly see that keyhole adapter piece is on the bottom of the radiator. One page over, here's an Orchard 5J. That piece is not present. So it's like all throughout time, some tractors had those and some just didn't. And although it is clearly evident that 5J1113 had that piece at one point in time, like I said before, if I am unable to locate one, it's not exactly the end of the world because, well, now you know why I went to all the trouble of building side iron brackets and two-piece engine side panels and 2 attempts at a curved bumper, and it was all just in an effort to cover up the fact that we don't have that piece. No, that's not why. But it's going to go a long way towards that not being a noticeable detail anyhow. So that's really all I had for you all tonight. And all right, I got to spill the beans. I've had something in the works for 2 years now, close to 2 years for 5J1113, and I've held off on letting anybody know about it at all because it seemed like such a stretch with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, and it's a deal that could have worked out or fell through, and I didn't know what was going to happen because it's a long story. There's all kinds of external circumstances that were out of everyone's control that came into play, but if all goes according to plan, in about 2 weeks' time, I'm going to have the final piece of the puzzle here and in place for 5J1113, and it's a big one. It's going to go a long ways towards helping to explain again why I wanted to keep most of the original finish intact on this tractor. Hopefully it'll help to answer some of those nagging questions for people that just can't figure out why I don't want to have it shiny, and we'll just say it's a big surprise. I'd love to go deeper into it than that, but I'm just saying be on the lookout for some big news to be hitting the airwaves for this tractor. I can give you a hint, it's in the second. All right, we're gonna wrap it up right here. It is exciting times for sure. Hopefully it all works out and I can give you all the news in a bit. So as always, everybody, thanks for watching, and till next time.